Hello and welcome to Kramer's Corner with Daily Technical Update. It is Monday and it is the 16th of March. This video is for educational purpose only. There's no recommendation or advice whatsoever intended. But let's start with some of the big names in US. We haven't talked about Apple for a while. So let's do it this morning here. Apple got hit with a little bit of a selling Friday, but that shouldn't come as a surprise as it's been in a downtrend for a little bit of a while. And there is risk down to around the 244 key support, where we also have the 200 moving average coming up. Maybe we can bounce a little bit today because the futures are up a little bit. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just keep an eye on this 244 support level here and the 200 moving average. Negative sentiment on the RSI indicating a lower level for Apple. Another one that I know there are a lot of people or investors that are interested in is Eli Lilly, the weight loss producer. Of course, they do other things, but they are currently known for their weight loss pills and medicine. Key support here around 977. It has actually closed a little bit below there on the 12th. But in this area here seems to be fairly strong support, still positive sentiment on the RSI, so could bounce. But let's see if it takes out these lows here from the past couple of weeks. Well, then there's risk much lower. As you can see, this is what we would call the fast area, and that could also be the fast area to the downside if it breaks below these lows here. However, we have the 100 moving average coming up, so we have the 200, and there's still a slightly positive sentiment to cling on, but it is a little bit under pressure at the moment. The last one I'm going to talk about today is Mesa Platform that got beaten 4% Friday. And here on the daily chart, we can see how it gapped lower, pushed lower. And there's not much strong support until around here on the weekly. We see 587 area, where there's some stronger support. Currently around the the 100 weekly moving average coming up there. That is pausing a little bit, and also if we have a fairly positive day today, it could bounce a little bit, but we are in a bearish trend short term and also medium term that could be extended. On the overall markets, the Nasdaq 100 Friday closed below the 24,500 support. Didn't take out these lows here, but we are in a bearish trend, negative sentiment both on the daily and bearish trend here also on the weekly. Not confirmed by our side just yet, but I think it could be just a matter of time. We are below the cloud here on the daily, as we can see. We have the 55 below the 100. So the 200 moving average here will give a little bit of support, and we can see here pre-market here early morning in Europe, the Nasdaq future is bouncing just a little bit, about 1%, but again, I mean, we not 1%, 0.6%, bouncing a little bit, but still we are in a bearish trend, and it could still easily turn sour again. So be careful out there. The S&P 500 also in a bearish trend. You can see lower lows, lower highs, and lower lows. Closed lower here. Some support here that are at 6,600, where we have the 200 moving average coming up. There's risk down to around 6,534 here short term. And if it takes out that, well, then we have an even uglier picture with potential down to around 6,280, maybe even 6,200 here. You can see on the weekly there's some support in this little bit of consolidation area there. Pre-market, we're also bouncing a little bit, but again, let's see if that can continue into a real session later today. If it takes out the lows from today, then we're looking at these 65.40 support levels there. Dow Jones also quite heavy here is the future, but bouncing a little bit, hovering around the 200 moving average, but as you can see, negative sentiment on the RSI, no divergence indicating lower levels. The Russell 2000, on the other hand, actually, well, yes, it is in a bearish trend, but it paused above or stopped above the 245 illustrated here at the ETF on the Russell 2000. In Asia this morning, we have the Hang Seng that was quite positive, but it is still in a bearish trend situation. RSI is still negative, but it's back above 40. So let's see, can it actually bounce further here the next couple of days? I'm afraid that it will also slide back if the US market continues to exhibit a bearish trend, which I believe will in the near future. Nikkei 100, 225. Bounce from the 100 moving average, that's going to say. Still above the cloud. It closed in there, but it never closed below. Key support here, 51,170. And RSI is actually in a negative sentiment there on the future. But let's see if it can bounce further and then crawl back above the 55 moving average and 55,000. Then maybe there's a chance to re-establish the bullish trend, or establish a bullish trend there. In the European market, that has been very choppy, very volatile lately. Friday, extremely volatile there. Again, you see a lot of uncertainties in the market here. Euro Stoxx 50, 5,678 support, hasn't closed below at any one time. And let's have a look at what's going on here. Pre-market, it's about to open. There's still about an hour before it will open as I do this video. You can see 5,666 support there on the CFD/future. But we are in a bearish trend, so be careful. If it takes out this low there from the 13th of March, well, then we could see a revisit of the 5,510, 5,486 lows there. DAX index, more or less the same picture, obviously. A lot of volatility Friday, and we can see here pre-market, it is bouncing a little bit, but let's see if it can continue to bounce. I would be cautious about that. On the forex market, we have euro dollar that was sold off here throughout the last week, pausing a little bit here just above 114, and could bounce further. So what I will do, I will add a Fibonacci to the last leg down here, just around here. We could still see it testing the 114, just above it, buyers coming in here, and could maybe bounce to 115, possibly a little bit higher. But as we can see here on the weekly, it actually pushed much lower, and it is testing, as you can see, this support here, that it will be key. Let's just add a support line to it. So that's really key here, just around 114, where we are trading at the moment. The sterling dollar also bouncing a little bit, didn't get all the way down to 131.6065, but as you can see here, did dip just below 132. We are in a bearish trend, but as we can see on weekly, we're still in positive sentiment actually. So overall picture slightly positive, but on the daily, of course, as we talked about for weeks now, bearish trend and could push lower. And this 131.60 is not the strongest one. It is much stronger down here around 130. Will we get down there? It's debatable, but as we can see, the 55 turnaround, the 200 and 100 moving average also declining. So I think we will see lower levels if it can't get back above 133, and if it can't get back above the rising trend line there, then I think it will merely just be a short-term bounce that we are going to see here on the on sterling dollar. It could bounce up to the 133 to 38.2 retracement there. The euro sterling opened below 86 this morning here, just below it, but has bounced strongly, and it could continue to bounce up to the 38.2 retracement of this sell-off there at around 86.66 in this region here, and the lower part of the cloud. But then we have the 55 moving average coming down, kind of putting a lid on it there. So also a bearish trend, but for now that is indeed a very strong move this morning here. The It is, of course, very thin market when it started trading, so it's not that strong. But let's see, still bearish trend overall there. Excuse me. The dollar yen pair, well, it closed higher here Friday, but it seems to be maybe exhausting a little bit. We are in a bullish trend or positive sentiment. There is still room higher. There's no divergence on the RSI, and I think we will see dollar yen higher here in the coming weeks. Maybe after a little bit of correction, that could take it down to around 157.5, maybe even 156.88. But then we have the 55 coming up, the 100 moving average coming up, and as we can see here, positive sentiment on the RSI is still indicating higher levels on the short to medium term. And if we're looking at the weekly, we'll see it's really taking out that resistance there. So there is potential up to these peaks here, just below 162 in the coming weeks. Euro yen setting back this morning, and it's primarily driven by the euro move. A little bit of volatility, but I mean, it sold off at the end of the week last week, dipping below minor support there at 182, almost down to the 786 retracement there at 181.65, but has bounced a little bit. I think we will see a push lower here. We have established a bearish trend, lower low there, lower high, and now a lower low, so could push lower. And we are actually in a negative sentiment on the RSI already, and if it moves back below 40 threshold, well, then there's potential down to 180, possibly a lower. Aussie yen, well, still in this bullish trend. It's been in this bullish trend for quite a while now, 7 months, and I think we will see it pushing higher. Currently we are in a bit of a correction, but I will stay bullish on it until it breaks below 110.20, and it's basically 110 and the rising trend line there. Sterling yen, let's zoom in a little bit there. Correction time, we anticipated that Friday after reaching the 786 retracement, and then it sat back, and now it's hovering around just below the 50%, but still above this rising trend line. I think we could see it dipping a little bit lower, maybe to the 61.8 retracement there at 210.50, and maybe even dipping just below the rising trend line and below the cloud. But we have positive sentiment, so I think we will continue higher, and we have higher high, higher low, higher high, and now possibly a higher low. So a turnaround I would expect in the coming days. Aussie dollar tested this morning in thin market, but nevertheless tested the support and just above the 55 moving average there at 69.45. Strong bounce, and could continue its bounce throughout the day, which I believe it will. We are still above the 55 moving average and above the cloud. Still positive sentiment on the RSI, and I think we will see it bouncing up to 71 to 61.8 retracement there fairly soon, in a couple of days maybe. Dollar Canada also continuing its bounce here, and now about the 55 moving average. I think if we see it establish itself above the minor support there at 135.75. 75, yeah, and the RSI then could close back above 60 threshold. Then we are back in a bullish trend for the dollar Canada, with a potential higher to 139 area up here. However, we do have the 100 moving average coming down there, and 200 and about to be crossed over here. It's not going to happen today, but I think could happen tomorrow, and that will kind of put a lid on it just around 138. Sterling Canada, the difficult pair, bouncing a little bit, but still in a bearish trend, but it has bounced, and I think maybe we could see it bouncing further here the next couple of days up towards 183. I'm not quite sure we'll get all the way up there before selling pressure could hit again. The Swiss franc stepping sideways here, just below 90.5. The lows here around 89.80. If it's taking out, well, then we are looking at 89 level. But for now, a bit of a range bound here, and I think actually we will see it bouncing higher towards the 61.8 retracement there at 90.85. We could see that here the coming days. Dollar Swiss primarily driven by the dollar, and has taken out Friday the minor resistance there, continuing higher, and I think we could see it push up to around 79.50, maybe a little bit higher here. We have the 200 moving average coming down, kind of putting a little bit on it, but we are in a positive sentiment. RSI above 60 threshold, indicating likely higher levels, and in the coming weeks we can see a push up towards 80, maybe even in this region here. But yeah, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, bullish trends, and be aware there could be a little bit of a counter trend or corrections, but we are in a bullish trend, indicating higher. Dollar index just below the resistance there at 100.35. Could see a little bit of a setback, but RSI in a positive sentiment, no divergence, indicating likely higher levels in the coming days and weeks. And we can also see what is going on here on the weekly chart. We do have just below this 100.35 RSI knocking on the 60 threshold there. If it can establish itself above that on the weekly, well, then there's potential much higher towards 102 in the coming weeks. But expect a little bit of correction there before it is likely to have another go at the 100.35 resistance. On the metals market, well, quite weak here lately. So it has lost momentum. As we can see, it actually kind of established a little bit of correction there, testing the upper part of the cloud. There's not strong support until around 4,840, where we also have the 55 moving average coming up, giving a little bit of support. We're still in a positive sentiment here on the RSI, currently hovering just around 50 level, so kind of a pivot thing going on there. But let's see if we're looking on the intraday chart. It's currently testing 5,000, dipping below here overnight. So it could actually test this support there. If it closes below that support or takes it out and below the cloud there, well, then we could be looking at levels around 4,500. The silver, also quite weak, has turned around below the cloud, below 55 moving average. There's risk down to around 71, 70 support here, where we have the 100 moving average coming up, giving some support. Still positive sentiment on the RSI, but it is to the weaker side, and I think we could slide lower here on silver the coming days. Platinum testing support here just around 2,1988, and the 100 moving average still slightly positive sentiment, but I think we could see it pushing lower here. We're below the cloud, below 55. If it takes out that support there, well, then we could be looking at 1,700 again. Copper also a bit to the weaker side, but has bounced this morning here. There's some support here just around 562. Now below the cloud, but still positive sentiments and bouncing a little bit. Could it crawl back above the rising trend line there, maybe crawling up to 595? That would be a stretch. It needs to take out at that level there, just around 596, to re-establish a possibly bullish trend, but then we have strong resistance up here in the 611, 614 area. If it takes out the low there, well, the 562, well, then there's risk much lower for copper towards 553 and maybe even 537. Moving on to the energy market and crude oil, that is of course talk of the town at the moment due to what's going on in the Middle East, Iran and so on, the Hormuz Strait. Yes, we opened higher in Asian session here this morning above 102, but has been sliding back a little bit since then. But I think we will see it crawling higher here in the coming days and also throughout the day. We're just below the 61.8 retracement of this massive move there. Someone told me here the other day, technical analysis doesn't work when you have these volatile days, but you can't say, oh, now it's working and now it's not working. It is working all the time. It's just trying to read what the market tells us. And sometimes it's harder than other times, but we do have these levels that we could be looking at. We are in a bullish trend. There is a little bit divergence on the RSI. You can see RSI declining there, but still positive sentiment could indicating higher levels. And what I would do also, I would be looking at the intraday chart here as the 60-minute chart. As you can see, still crawling higher, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and still crawling higher there in a fairly strong bullish move. We have 55 hourly chart coming up. We have the 100 that turns around and could push higher here. All moving average, we are above the cloud. So it seems like we are pushing higher. Looking at the Brent crude oil, well, same picture really. Crawling higher, yes, it opened a little bit higher, set back, but it could easily crawl higher here in the coming days and weeks. It needs to get back above here, the Brent crude oil 95, before I think, okay, then it is really over for the bullish trend. But again, I think we could see it crawling higher here in the coming days and weeks. If you guys are familiar with point and figure charting, then I have a little treat for you here. This is WTI crude oil on the trading view chart, and these lines here, they are actually calculated based on point and figure, and this is Updata Analytics that is doing this. You can see the Linton price target here, and this is a fairly new indication. So, but point of figure is very, very old. So what it does, you can see first here, it did indicate back here in January that we would see a peak or a push up to around the 91, 92 level. It did reach it a couple of months later. Now it has activated a new target that points to 161. Let's see if we'll get there. We do not hope so, but it could happen. Also the Brent crude oil, same picture really, 161 there on the Brent crude oil. And this is, you can find it on TradingView. It costs a little bit to have it, but it is a very powerful tool if you're using a point and figure. It leaves out the time scale, so it is a very powerful tool indeed, but there's no certainties as we should I should point out. Moving on to the NatGas market, taking a little bit briefer here after a lot of volatility. We are trading here around 50 euros. As long as it stays above 45.40, well, then we are in a fairly bullish scenario. But if it takes out that level, then I think we could see it sitting back towards the 35. So maybe the worst is over. But of course, if it keeps escalating in the Middle East, then we could see also NatGas being hit by it. The US NatGas, on the other hand, well, more calm, although we are in a slightly bullish trend here short term. I draw on these parallel lines here, this channel which is trading in, but it is not that convincing. If it takes out the 290 and especially 277, well, then the downtrend has resumed. Moving on to the interest markets, the US 10-year Treasury yield just below 430 there, 229, could still, I think, push higher because with a positive sentiment, there's no divergence on the RSI, indicating likely higher levels, but a little bit of a correction, maybe down to 420 is not unlikely. And let's have a look at the EU 10-year rates here that has just opened here this morning in Europe. We are in a bullish trend, positive sentiment, a little bit stretched here, but I think we could see it pushing higher towards very close to testing 3%. Did it test Friday? No, just below it. If it takes out 3%, well, then there's a risk higher for the European 10-year. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of correction down to 290 and then another push higher. The UK 10 also quite strong, hasn't opened here this Monday morning just yet, but very close to test the peak and resistance there at 486. So keep an eye on that one if you're trading that market. The Japanese 10 pushing higher again here, has a fairly strong bullish trend, and I think we'll see it 231 here fairly shortly. The crypto market and Bitcoin is very close to actually testing the 74,500 resistance there once again, and maybe this is time we break higher. RSI testing the 60 threshold, so could push higher, and I think it could do that here the next few days, and then we're looking at a push up to 83,000 possibly. Ethereum, well, 2,377, the 38.2 retracement there, very close to pushing towards that level. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and keep charting out there, and be careful of the volatility and nervousness in the market. Have a nice day.